Well, hi everybody. This is DearMamaSal, and we are live on a Friday evening, which means it's time for us to talk about coping with life. And in coping with life, for those of you who don't know, what we're inclined to do is cook on a very tight budget. And whether you are retired, such as I am, or whether you just have, you know, maybe you're on disability and have a limited income, or maybe you just, don't have the sort of money that you used to have. And I think a lot of us are finding that. So it doesn't mean you can't eat well, it means you eat more carefully. And so tonight we're going to use some udon noodles. And this is not going to be the best recipe you ever saw in your life. This is going to be how can we do this easily? And just before I start, I need to make sure you know that I actually am somebody who has diabetes, and I manage my diabetes by my portion control and diet. So I know that some of you are going, and do you eat noodles? Yes, I do. The question is how much. So whereas this might be a fair portion for a growing teenager or a guy or something, I would only eat half of this, and that would be plenty by the time I've added the vegetables and the protein and everything to it, right? So that's when I look at this, I look at two meals, not one. Does that make sense to everybody? And that is how much I've changed over the last 6 years. So we're going to have fun. The next thing I wanted to talk about was the benefits of black pepper. I actually have a mixture here. Maybe it's easier to see it in here. I have a mixture of three peppers. All right. So I've got black, white, and red. I don't know if you can see all of them. There we go. There's some reds you can see. Um, and that is my pepper medley of choice. Again, before we talk about the benefits of it, remember how you buy it is going to make a huge difference. So if you're buying just ground black pepper, I'm going to talk to you in Canadian, and it doesn't really matter. Just know that 100 grams Canadian is about 3 ounces, I believe. So just to get an idea of the difference, though. So if you buy, what should we start with? If you bought a jar, like normally you buy it in a jar like this, if you buy a jar of ground pepper in Canada, it would cost you about $7.69. Let's say $7.50, okay, to buy it in a jar. But the interesting thing is that means you're paying nearly $21 per 100 grams. I mean, that's pretty scary, all right? Why? Because you're paying for the glass and the packaging, and therefore don't only ever do this once. If you must have matching spice containers, only buy the matching one once and then keep refilling it. There are two ways to refill it. You can buy a packet of black pepper, sort of in this size, and that would cost you about $6.50 for 100 grams. Remember, in a bottle it cost you nearly 21. So $6.50 if you buy it just in a package, not in a bottle. Isn't that amazing? And then I buy mine in bulk. In other words, I don't even buy it like this. I buy it. How many ounces is this? This is 200 grams in here. All right, roughly. I buy mine sort of, in a baggie from the grocery store. And let me tell you what the difference is there. Okay, so whole like this in a bottle would cost $7.40. No, sorry, $9.79. That's roughly $10 if I bought whole ones. If I buy it in bulk, it costs $3.19 for 100 grams. So a pretty big saving, and I will never buy, my spices and things in a bottle except for the first time. So you will see that I bought these little plastic condiment cups, and that's where I keep my bulk peppers like that. All right, so they'll stay good there for my lifetime. Um, but think about this. Isn't that incredible saving? You probably don't even think about it. But don't buy the bottle more than once is my word of advice here. All right, so udon noodles, two ways. You can just warm them up, or you can warm them up in broth. All right. I don't know how. Today I'm just going to warm them up. I'm not going to warm them up in broth, but it's a really interesting way. And the reason I'm going to just warm them up is because I've got a special dressing that I want to put over it. All right. So that's why a sauce. So that's why I'm not going to cook it in broth. If I were doing it just very quickly, if I just felt like some udon noodles tonight, I would just throw it in a pan with some beef stock. All right. And let it warm up in beef stock. And then it would absorb the beef stock and it would be really tasty. The next thing, it's Good Friday, so I'm going to show you this made with both chicken and beef, but obviously you can have it without any meat on it at all, so that's up to you. Now, you're probably wondering, why have I got a ruler here? For those of you who were here at lunchtime, you remember, let's get the broccoli. I'm growing broccoli microgreens. Now, I don't know if it's my imagination, or for those of you who were here at lunchtime, have these grown even since lunchtime? Because I think they have. So what I wanted to do was get an idea of roughly how tall they are now. And that would appear to be about 1.5 inches. Okay. And slightly bigger one, well, just over 1.5 inches. And so I want to see how tall they are by Sunday. But they're looking pretty good, aren't they? Oh, next experiment. You can probably see they were leaning that way and they're beginning to stand upright. That's because I turned them around. So I'm going to keep them. All right, you can see that they're slightly leaning that way. Hang on a second. Actually, I've nearly got them upright again. Yeah, I've nearly got them upright. That's pretty good. Okay, but they are slightly leaning this way. So I'm going to turn them with this at the front so that my light here is the light that they have. I want to see, do they go towards what do you call it? Indoor lights, night lights, as opposed to just the sunlight. And my sense is that the answer is yes. That's one way to find out. Looks like it's past its prime. There we go. Slightly better. A bunch of celery is about 1/4 the price of 4 or 5 stalks, just so that you know. So what I do is I buy a complete bunch and I just keep it in some water until it's just about done, which this is. But just think about that. If you buy about 4 stalks, they're about a buck each. If you buy the whole thing, it's about $3. Insane. And I love the leaves for adding garnish on things. All right, so what are we going to start with? We're going to start with the meat. Because we want the meat to marinate a little bit. So you get that out. So I've got some pretty, I got some pretty good steak here, actually. But you, quite honestly, you can buy flank steak and that will work really well as well. The thing to remember for me is to cut off the fat wherever I can. All right. And this is tri-tip steak. So it's got quite a bit of marbling in it already. So that will keep the taste up. I've got a bit more fat I'm going to cut off there at the end, because I don't need that. All right, now, and the next thing to remember is if you look at it carefully, the grain goes this way. So we're going to cut it against the grain. All right. And we're going to cut it into small slivers. Like that. There's some more fat I don't need. Goes over there. Okay. So there's our meat. And there are a number of things we're going to add to it. All right. So first of all, we're going to add a little bit of salt. So I've got Himalayan pink salt here. Doesn't need much, literally about 1/3 of a teaspoon. Don't overdo the salt. We don't need salt really. We do need some baking powder. No, I lie. We need baking soda. Anybody know why? So I've got some bicarb of soda, which is the same thing. And we're going to need a pinch of that. Now, basically, we're talking about again, about 1/3 of a teaspoon, right? So I'm just going to take a pinch like this. More than enough. Anybody know why we need baking soda on meat? I always like to give you guys a chance to show how brilliant you are. So we've got the baking soda, we need some cornstarch. Okay, and we need about a tablespoon. They say, well, me, I'm just going to throw some in there. It's probably a little less, but it's the end of the packet, it will do. All right, the reason we want the bicarb is it breaks up the fibers in the meat and therefore will make it guarantee that it will be nice and tender. All right, so that's done. And what else do we need for the marinade? We need basically, if you happen to have Chinese cooking wine, which probably Jody does, but I don't, but I have some regular wine that's left over, and you leave it in the fridge long enough, it becomes vinegar-ish. So I'm going to put in about, what should we do, about a tablespoon of that as well. Not too much. And then last but not least, we're going to put in some dark soy sauce. And again, not too much. You don't need too much. About a tablespoon. Just going to mix that all in. And it's just going to sit in that while I'm going to put it in the fridge till we need it. Okay, so it just looks like that. If I go to the fridge to find it and I can't find it and I come back to you and say, where did I put the meat? Could you tell me I put it in the fruit crisper? Because it's the only place I had some room. All right, so there we go. Now the next thing we're going to do is we are going to cook our vegetables a little bit. All right, we're going to par cook them. And the par meaning a little bit. All right. The reason is we're going to have different vegetables that need a certain amount of cooking. I don't know about you, but when I have vegetables and anything like this, I like to have them a little bit crispy. Things like my carrots and my celery, or my leeks, I like to have a little bit crispy. But I definitely like others, to make sure they're up to that. So think about how you're going to cut them. Whatever you want to be cooked very quickly, cut it very finely. And whatever can take a bit longer because you like it a little bit crispy, then you can cut those a bit thicker. I'm sure that makes sense to some people. So that's where I like to use my magic tool. Now we know that carrot's going to take a long time. So I'm going to make my carrot julienne like this. And we'll put it in there. We've got some celery, also takes a while. So before I cut it, I'm going to cut it that way. And then the bottom of it. And then I'm going to basically dice it. Okay, so I've got it down to about this size. So throw that in. So we've got carrot, we've done that. What about, got some broccoli. And again, I'm going to cut off the florets. And the florets are really the bits that we want because that will make it look pretty. Now, I'm going to actually cut up the stalk as well, but I'm going to cut it very finely because it's all good fiber and it's all good for you fiber. So that can go in as well. Right, we've got some red pepper, and that's not going to take very long to cook at all, so I'm going to cut that larger. We have got some orange pepper. Again, won't take long to cook, so we can do bigger bits of that. And I've got some yellow pepper that I need to use up. All right, this looks pretty healthy. We've got some zucchini. Ah, interesting. Jodie's saying she's never done that with baking. You never put baking soda in with meat that you want to tenderize. Okay, well, you've learned something today, Jodie. Whoever thought I'd be teaching you something? So again, this cooks very quickly, so I'm just going to quarter it like that and then cut it. Right? That'll be fine. So that's good. I was going to put some red onion in, but I managed to get some fresh leeks this week. So I'm going to put in both the green and the white of the leek. So first I'm going to cut off the end. And then cut off the bottom here. And then that just is the white. Leeks taste like onions, for those of you who don't know leeks. And then we want some green. because the green's always good for us. And what I'm going to do is cut the green this way. Okay, so I've cut the green part so that we've got like julienne stripes of it, right? That's very good. And these I will deal with later. My Friday evening chore is to tidy it all up. Put that away. All right, so now let us, I've got the water boiling. That's good. So we're just going to drop the noodles in. It's a bit early. I've still got some things to do, so I won't do it quite yet. I'll turn this down a bit. We'll come back to you. All right, so what I'm going to do with those vegetables, I am going to just put them in the microwave to cook them, about half cook them. All right, so when I put it all together, at least they're half cooked. Looks good. Yeah, I'm going to cook them in. So I put those in for about 2.5 minutes. What have we got here for? Don't forget. Don't forget to rinse them. To rinse what? I've already rinsed the vegetables. The udon noodles. Isabel, which do you want me to rinse? I reckon dropping them in boiling water is a fairly good rinse in itself. Okay, so these are the soft ones, all right? Oh, wrong side, sorry, honey. These are the soft noodles. So do you still want me to rinse these? And the reason you want them rinsed, no, I don't need to, okay. The reason you want to rinse them is to get rid of the starch, right? Okay. When they pack udon noodles, they vacuum pack them. So part of the reason we want to put them into the boiling water is to loosen them all up. Make sense? But we don't need to loosen them up for too long. That's good. And now we're going to make a sauce for the noodles. Okay, so in the noodles, we're going to put in a large amount of black pepper. Now, this is where I wanted to talk to you about black pepper. And I will sort of get a cheat sheet out here because it's quicker. But if you're not using a lot of black pepper in your food, you might want to consider doing so. And the reason I suggest that, if I can find it here. Okay, the health benefits of black pepper, everybody. Good for your skin. No idea why, but it is. All right. It helps get rid of colds. It improves your digestion. It's an efficient ingredient if you've got ulcers. It alleviates toothache. I didn't know that, did you? It prevents cancer. Well, it's a bit late for that. Well, maybe getting another one. All right. Helps in weight loss. I need that for sure. Helps fight depression. So if you're inclined for anxiety or depression, think about adding more pepper. It helps with asthma if you're asthmatic. And also it clears the sinuses. So we like that as well. So basically they said put it in there like a full tablespoon. All right. And I'm not going to put quite that much in because I got red pepper in there as well. What did I do with my peppers? There it is. Okay, so let me just see how much I want to put in there. Still going to put in a fair amount. So I'm going to put in about a couple of teaspoons. Yeah, Jody's saying I like freshly cracked pepper and I use it quite a bit. I want to tell you, I would only ever have mine freshly cracked. That's not true. I think somewhere in the back of a cupboard I've got some that's already crushed. All right, so we've got that. Duh. So by cooking the vegetables for a minute and a half, can you see they've still got plenty of bright color to them, right? They're not sort of boiled without their color. They're now just a little bit soft. Jody says, yes, so the other stuff in the can I call pepper dust. Yeah, isn't that true? All right, so we're going to leave that. We're going to have that in a second. We'll just strain it. Do it this way. Now, for the actual sauce, we've got the black pepper in first. And then we're going to add in about a tablespoon of soy. That's good. A little bit of oyster sauce. I find oyster sauce a little bit messy, so I keep a paper towel wrapped around it. So about the same of oyster sauce going. I see. There we go. In a minute, I'm going to have 3 tablespoons, but here you go. Gives wonderful taste, this stuff. All right, and we also need, if you've got fish sauce, feel free to put that in. I'm thinking maybe some of the sesame oil. Jody, we always like that, don't we? If I can find it. There we go. Now then, obviously, if you guys love garlic, feel free to add that in to your aromatics. There we go. Unfortunately, I'm allergic, so you will never see me putting that in. But I have to remember that you don't have my problems. So we're going to do that, and we're also going to put in, that's all we need, I think. Now, here's something that I learned. Don't ever put the sauce into a pan, all right? Because it will immediately be a hot pan, and therefore it will sort of go straight to the bottom and start overcooking. The trick is always put the noodles in the sauce and then the sauce in the pan. Does that make perfectly good sense to some of you? So we're going to strain the noodles. Question. How many of you were taught never ever put your pots and pans into the dishwasher because you'll ruin them? I want to tell you something. I don't often advertise things like my cookware, but this stuff is called Trementina. If you can see that, I must have had it 20 years. And it always goes in the dishwasher. Look at it, brand spanking new. Can you believe that? All right, now what it said, and I didn't know this one, so it already has got some starch coming off it, which is great. And the next thing, I did this the wrong way around, but never mind. The next thing is just leave it to drain. I've got it on a grid there so that the water is draining off any extra thing, and the heat will take any extra moisture off the noodles. Hope that makes sense. And then what we're going to do is drop them in here. We forgot to cook the meat. Why didn't you tell me? Let's do that. Actually, it would be really quick to cook them in the air fryer. So we don't want to overcook them. We're just going to cook them about medium rare. And at that thickness, I would think that'll take about 5 minutes, but let's see. And the oven wasn't already preheated. All right. Right. Isabel's saying it's so hard to cut out the salt. I bought the fleur de sal, the big size, and it's good, but I've had lots of headaches recently. Yeah. Obviously, things like soy sauce and anything that comes in a can, it's going to have sodium in it. So, yeah, try and cut it out. I allow myself to have it on Fridays because I know I'm going to cook for you guys, but I try not to have salt during the week as well. Not yet, but I will see what I can find. Jody and I will go on a mission for you, see what we can find out for you. I think, like all things, it's a case of how often do you have it, and a little bit, I think, again, I had thought, I was led to believe that the pink salt was better for you than the white salt. That's not true. It's equally bad, I believe. Yeah, Isabel's saying that she has Mrs. Dash, but it's just not doing it for her. So if any of you know, or if you are a viewer watching this on the replay and you have tricks to get around the sodium, let us know so we can pass it on to people who need to lower the sodium in their diets. That's good. Okay. So I'm now, while the meat is cooking, going to just put the noodles into the sauce. So there you can see it's absorbed the sauce, and you can actually see the black pepper on it. But the noodles aren't all yucky. All right, and that's what we want. Excellent. Happy with that. I just want to turn the meat quickly. Should be good. What else have we got? Jody's saying, I understand that. That's Isabel. All right, I have Mrs. Dash too, but sometimes I like just a little bit of salt on certain foods. I use Maiden brand salt, flake style, like fleur de sal. So, sorry, sea salt. Yeah, do what you can. I try not to have, for example, soy sauce. I try not to have that more than once a week. But when I have it, I enjoy it. And that's really important. Jody is wondering whether Isabel's drinking enough liquids when she uses the sea salt. That could help with the headaches. Yes, anytime you're having something that you shouldn't, make sure you have extra liquids. I would say, the same thing as whenever I have anything sweet, I'm inclined to load up on the liquids during the evening, and that works really well. So it's learning how to compensate. Jody taught me that very early on when I had got bad diabetes. She taught me, you can have everything, have it in moderation, and then know how to cover it. That's the important thing. Know how to balance it out is really important. So think about that. If you know you're going to have something that has got sodium in it, maybe it came out of a can and you can't help it. The other trick, one of the things I found out, Isabel, my sister, for example, said that she couldn't have nuts because they were salted. And I said, so why don't you rinse them? All right. And she said, what? And I said, why don't you rinse your nuts and then let them dry again? And then you'll have unsalted nuts. So sometimes you can think about it, which is, what if you took, here's an idea. I just, you know me, I like to talk my way through solving problems. But I'm thinking, what if you took some salt and had it in, filtered water? And so what you've got is a salty type water, that you're not putting pure salt in, that it's just, you would sort of diminish the amount of salt that you're putting on, and maybe put it in a spritz bottle. All right. What if you put some salt in the bottom and filled it with water, and then spritzed your food so you've got that little bit of sodium, but not as much as you would normally have? Would that be an idea? That would be worth trying, Sal. You can't have this one. It's for my broccoli. All right. So that's just exactly what I wanted here. And what I'm going to do is I'm now going to put everything onto that same dish and just let my air fryer warm everything up, and then I'll put it together. So there we go. I'm just going to warm it all up. So here we go. Yeah, it doesn't hurt to try, right? It's like, I'm thinking about, how do you have the salt but not quite as much? The rest of the family, if they're allowed to have salt, they can have the regular salt, but you keep yourself a little spritzer where you can just get that slight, that slight taste of salt, but it's not as strong. I like that as an idea. I might try that myself. Okay, In the meantime, did you understand? That's interesting. Isabel's from Montreal, or from Quebec, and she says my last name, if you were to translate it into the English, means drink salt. Isn't that funny? Yeah. Don't drink salt. It'll make you throw up. Um, Now, I don't use these very often, but one time when Benji was going over to see his grandparents, he said to me, what would you like me to bring back for you? And I said, I really would like some real Japanese chopsticks. So aren't they beautiful? I've got, I think, about 4 of them, 4 lots. And I don't use them very often, but whenever I do, I thoroughly enjoy using them. We're going to need some garnish, so let's do that. Scissors. So there are some fresh chives that are growing here on my countertop here. And I'm going to take some of my sprouted seeds that will make nice garnish on top. And maybe why do I always have my tea towel farthest away? You're saying, why don't I use the ones on the stove? You know I can't use this. Okay, so let's see how we're going to put this together. I'm going to put about half the noodles in first. So I think that will be plenty. Good. Half the noodles, half the vegetables on top. Now, obviously, if you had mushrooms or whatever else you happen to have in the house this week, feel free to add that. So half that. And then what is left is going to go for another meal this week. Remember, if you can, as you are busy learning more about portion control, if you have containers that force your portion control, it's a lot better. You know, I know that filling in this is enough for a meal. So that's how it looks there. And we're going to just put some garnish on it. What did I do with it? Okay, I know you're here. There you are. All right, so we're just going to put a little bit of chive, homegrown. Put some on there. I'm going to put a little bit of You can be pretty sure that that's Dougie. He always forgets I do a broadcast on Friday night. All right, and then, but I'm grateful he still phones. And now what I'm going to do is to put some celery on top of that. Just the leaves. And there we have, in less than an hour, from start to finish, a pretty balanced meal. Not too many carbs, not too much protein. By the way, if you really wanted to up the protein level, put it on a poached egg on top of this. All right? That would be a really good idea. And I might do that when I do this second one. I'm not going to do it this evening because, I want to eat this right now. But to put a poached egg on top would add to the protein. And as Jody will tell you, that we just don't eat enough protein. So think about that. And to me, another easy way to put a lot of vegetables into our system without I'm using up leftover vegetables. It's just a very important thing for me that I don't throw away. I've really got this almost down to I know exactly how much I'm going to eat of any vegetable in any week. And also now I'm trying to work through some of the stuff that is in my freezer. Yeah, protein is very important. I can't stress that enough. I think we were mind controlled not to eat protein for so long, Jody. And now I know, and I know that funny enough, a lot of doctors and things are asking me why my bones are as strong as they are, which by the way is going to help me because I'm now on a hormone blocker. That's going to give me osteoporosis if I'm not careful. And they said to me, you might want to go back to eating dairy. And I said, no, I never gave up eating dairy. I've always eaten it because of the protein. So there we go. A very nice meal, easy to do, a balanced, not too much of it. So therefore, you don't have to feel guilty. And for those of you who were there at lunchtime, I was thinking one of the other things I did this week, and I forgot to mention, was I did clean my Keurig. Do any of you have a Keurig? Because something happened and I thought I would share it with you in case any of you have got a Keurig. And in case anybody who's watching later has one, I better tell you anyway. All right, so what I had it on D scale. And I was in the middle of, doing a rinse with vinegar in it and everything was going well. And then I went to, I noticed that the D scale light came on again. And I'm going, and I couldn't get that D scale light to go off. So here's what I did, because that would upset me. So what I did was I unplugged it. And this might not be in the book of instructions, but when I explain to you why I did it, it will make sense. I was pretty sure that a little piece of calcium had got stuck somewhere in the system. And that's what was causing it to tell me to descale it. So what I did is I unplugged it first because I had water in the system. And then I held it and I shook it, in all directions, sort of left to right, up and down, this way, little bit round like this. And then I ran the water again and then put another load of water in there, and it didn't tell me to descale. So whatever I did dislodge that little bit of calcium. So I thought I would mention that, but make sure you obviously unplug it and be careful. Oh, the other thing I did, I must admit, I tipped it over the sink so that any water could run off, and it did. So I'm not sure which of the many things I did the trick, but I do know it did do the trick. This is DearMamaSal saying I'm off to go and eat my udon noodles, and I'm going to thoroughly enjoy them, and I hope you have a wonderful Easter weekend. We'll see you on Sunday, maybe. I'm still deciding whether we should do a broadcast on Sunday. I think a lot of people are going to have company, so I may choose to let that go. And I'll talk to Jody about it afterwards, and we'll talk about it. Hope you enjoyed. This is DearMamaSal saying thanks for your support. Thanks, Jody, for the help. And we will see you either on Sunday or next Friday. Bye-bye for now.